again, don't say well. That's
Oh.
um. So one thing I forgot to mention in welcome is that like wow, is that welcome again? Yeah.
Wow.
Is I forgot to mention last video is like I'm here and Jamin's here, and for myself especially is like I don't know too much, like I'm still learning, and I'm not saying my words or my knowledge is absolute truth. It must be taken as such, but it's just like I said, right, start that whole conversation, um, and try just to encourage and um, work work towards that. Right, like, that's one of my things I found and learned about myself is that I really appreciate what our topic is nationhood. Um, so I don't know if you want to add or say anything else.
Yeah, well, I mean, like, sometimes I like to think I know everything, but I don't. It's a hard pill to swallow sometimes. No, but I'm in the same boat too. As I have a lot to learn. Like, as you know, I'm fairly a young guy yet, so constantly humbled by all my old mushums and uncles there, telling me to just live life, enjoy it. So that's kind of like where I come from too with that. And yeah, so you wanted to talk about, I guess, where we come from, our experiences, and adapting into, I guess,
A nationhood.
nationhood. Yeah.
So, what do you think? So, what do you think about nationhood?
Oh, it's nationhood, eh? Nationhood is it's a debated topic because you get the balance between what is nationhood and what is peoplehood. And these are things like we go through in Indigenous studies when we're talking about them. And nationhood is about solidarity between people who share some similarities with one another. There's reason as to why they've come together to recognize themselves as a nation or as a polity. And when it comes time to talk about nationhood, we have to talk about what are those elements of those nations that make it strong. Also, what makes it weak. And so I guess that's where a lot of the debate is, right? Just as colonization is, like, I think any dynamic within, I guess, humans, it's all going to be complicated. Because you have, nation to nation in terms of colonization, Canada to the Indian. But then you also have, family to family within the nationhood. That, because I guess to understand our Nahio nationhood is to understand it according to a family, according to kinship values. The thing is, we weren't a clan people. People say in history at one time we were, but we got rid of that. And there's a reason why we got rid of that. For that, I don't know the answer, but we got rid of the clan system and we eventually started establishing ourselves according to families, and our political systems were, I guess, centered around children and child rearing and how you can raise good children. So that's kind of like the nationhood was structured to, I guess, to accommodate the family more so.
Yeah, that's I never seen that side of it before. Because how I learned, and this is like this is kind of interesting. I share like so a few years ago there was like they had this nationhood talk at FNU, and it was kind of a big deal. Everybody was like showing up and like really promoting it.
Yeah.
And one of the things, and they shared and they talked through everything, and it was cool, and I was excited to be part of it. But at the end, I asked the question like, what are practical ways to bring these ideas of nationhood, of revitalizing our cultures and identities and all these kind of things? What are the practical ways that we can teach the youth? And one of the speakers was like, well, you just gotta start thinking for yourself. And that was it.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, well, who's been thinking for me all this time? Like I just didn't get that answer, and I still think about like their response, and I still don't get it. Like I that's part of kind of who I am, is like question, right? Question everything, and I'm trying to figure out and understand and come to that understanding where it's like what do we do, or what should we do, and I really like to hear, and it's encouraging to hear those kind of things, how you talk about like re seeing through nihil eyes, or like doing everything again through those kinds of ways, as opposed to like and then that's even tougher, like how you said it's layers, right? It's so layered, and we're trying to figure that out.
One of the biggest things, I guess, when we understand like our nation, when we look at it, we have to consider that because of what we talked about in the previous video, colonization, like there's so much elements and there's so much to sort through. It's the same thing, like we have a very filtered view of what nationhood looks like within our own selves. We think we know what's best for our own people, but do we actually know what's best for our own people? The best example I can look forward to right now is even when you said that, well, who's thinking on behalf of me right now?
Yeah.
Right? But then you have these people out there, like, let's say the AFN chief, Mr. Perry Belger out there, making memorandums of understandings, making all these kind of legislative document work, putting himself in the position of being the Grand Chief and making these nation decisions. And then so like people will try to think on behalf of us. People, like, especially like when you look into those who play into colonial politics, when you get into a chief's position, any reserve, any provincial organization, any national, like AFN, to me, that's the principle, is that moment alone is saying that I'm going to go think on behalf of my people. And then so we got to kind of go back to those understandings of what a leader was. So if we're going to understand our nationhood, we also have to like refigure out what is leadership now too. So then a long time ago, they used to call chiefs Ogama. Today though, they call them Ogama Gun. And then so that suffix at the end, gun, means that's an indicator to say that this is fake. So Ogama meaning a leader or the boss or something. Ogama Gan, put that at the end, that's a fake boss. Talk specifically to the INAC legislation that came onto reserves, and that controls us now through an election system, through in quotes, a democracy. But the thing is, like, like, I guess white people will constantly put this label onto us and make us believe it and make us see it, to say like, oh, the kind of leadership style you guys have, that's a democracy. But to us, we didn't put no name to it. We had our own. This is the way of the people. This is Negi Omachihun. This is the way of the Cree people. This is how we do this. In that, to me, there's a difference between a government of a democracy, between a government of a people who've just done this since time immemorial, since a long time ago. There's a very big difference there, and we can't keep putting those labels. So then that just goes back to what I was saying earlier, is that when we look at nationhood, we are pre-programmed to look at it through the white man's eyes. And that is what these systems have done to us, whether we realize it or not. When we go through the television, and we go through digital information era, we go through all these things, we don't realize how much it actually does influence us. And then it goes back to that talk about decolonization, you know?
Yeah.
Taking a step out for a second of the systems that are, so we have nihil systems, we have white man systems, we have political systems, and we have all these systems. And these ideas come from like the Tutus family. You know, I attended their workshop and they started introducing me to systemic thinking and how you can understand better concepts of nationhood and reclamation. And it's pretty crazy because that's where I come with that idea where it's like this is an onion. So that's just kind of like what I had to say to that, though, is that it's filtered in that people do try to think on behalf of us.
Yeah.
So like, even going back to what the elder said too, like when we have to start thinking on behalf of ourselves, thinking for ourselves, that is, it's true, but at the same time we also have to think for our people, but not thinking for them, but thinking kind of like with them in the sense that that's kind of how I see that.
Yeah. And my kind of deal was I was just hoping that, and I think the speaker was just kind of like also just said like because there was another speaker there, and he's done a lot of work like in Navajo Nation about kind of rebuilding, revitalizing nationhood, and they do have quite the what's the word, the system. They have quite the system going, working for them, right?
Yeah.
But everything's done through that perspective of the Navajo lens, right? But I can't speak too much on that because I don't know, because I'm not Navajo, you know, and I'm just coming to understand these kind of things through an Nihil kind of lens, right? So, that's so that's all the time we have for this episode. You know, there's lots to talk about, figure out, right? And like we've said and mentioned before, that we're just trying to have those conversations started, or you know, and just expand on them, right? Like I know for myself, it's just to encourage, right, and to I'm nothing special. I'm not nothing special, so, but yeah, we'll catch you on the flippity flop.
Side.